Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we are back for more of the end of the year wishlist cleanup 2018. I guess I should put the year in it. I haven't done that so far. So basically what's going on, we'll scroll through the E's because we're doing the letters of games, the games that start with the letter E, which will be a shorter, marginally shorter experience. What we're doing here is every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I live stream, I play Hearthstone, and I talk about new video game news and games that have come out in the past few days. So, and that's pretty much every game that comes out on Steam. If something that I see while live streaming seems like it has a chance of being a good game, it gets put in my wish list, or at least it was getting put in my wish list, which has caused me to have an incredibly large Steam wish list. It really should have been in the follow list always, and I am now moving new games that are iffy into the follow list. That means next year it will be a lot quicker and more efficient to just go through the follow list, which will have a lot less games. My wish list in particular is supposedly supposed to be full of games that I have at least determined a certain level of quality, so I'd be willing to actually play and cover them on my YouTube channel. So you can see it didn't take as long as it has for any of the previous sections to get to the top of E. So what we're going to do here is we're looking at every single one. We are keeping an eye on for specific red flags. There could be something as simplistic as a just low effort name or description, although those aren't going to be major contributing factors because they probably wouldn't have made it to the wish list in the first place. We're going to keep an eye on the score. This game, for example, is 88% positive of 300 user reviews over its lifetime. Sometimes you have a review score also in the last 30 days. If we get desperate, we might look at the developers and publisher and see if this game is in with good company, if the developer has made other games that are rated positively or negatively, or if the publisher has published other games. Not specifically too picky on the type of game, not specifically going to pay too much attention to the price tag. I have considerable number, or pretty much all the plugins you could have for Steam, or for the Chrome browser when you're browsing Steam. So this, I believe, is the "Is there any deal" plugin that will talk about like historical low prices. We won't really be paying much attention to that. I want to keep an eye on it to make sure it's a single player game. If it's a multiplayer only game, I'm probably never going to be able to criticize it. It's if you're playing a multiplayer only game, then your experience is kind of unique and you have to generalize a lot more, and frankly I just don't play multiplayer games. We want to look at the language. If it's a visual novel or something that's going to have a ton of dialogue, I'd prefer to have full audio. If it's a game that's in English and Russian only, or English and simplified Chinese only, then I want to be a little bit more careful, because a lot of troll games and fake games come out with those languages supported and nothing else. We have, another plugin from Steam Spy that tells the average playtime of a player, which is kind of different than the plugin here for How Long to Beat, which tells you what the average person takes to beat the story with extra, or play as a completionist. And when we find a game that has some data on that, we'll point more information out on that, because I will be keeping a slight eye on it. If this is a $20 game, for example, and it takes 30 minutes to beat, that's not a game that I think I could ever justify buying. And if it is $20 in this fictional example, then it probably would never be able to go down low enough. The highest I think I've ever seen anything on Steam discounted was 95% off, which still would probably put a $20 game somewhere around a couple of dollars without doing the math. And even a couple of dollars for a 30-minute game is probably not worth it. We won't be paying too much. We won't really be using the performance survey plugin. And if we get really, really desperate, we will look at the reviews. And typically I want to try to avoid, basically I ignore all positive reviews, particularly ones that are super short, and only look at the negative ones. And then I want to just skim the negative ones and see if I can understand and believe and agree with them. It's pretty much a 10-to-1 ratio. So if there are 10 positive reviews and 1 negative review, then I think that, in my mind, makes it about even. Because most games get mostly positive reviews. You very rarely on Steam have something that has below even 40% positivity. More often than not, people will just not bother to review a game, and you'll have games that don't meet my threshold of at least 25 reviews. And this number of 25 that I'm using for that threshold includes 25 reviews from people who bought the game directly from Steam and didn't get the key from some other place, which Steam doesn't really count those because Steam just wants you to buy it directly from Steam to make sure the developer didn't give you a key for a free review. Earn to Die is a weird game as we start to cover it. It looks a lot like it's a cell phone port, and it very possibly is. There was a cell phone game where you were driving a car through a zombie wasteland, and this seems to be a clone of that idea. You can see this developer does not have the original game listed on Steam, and neither does the publisher. So this is the only game that is even slightly available. I put this on my wish list at the height of me having fun with playing the cell phone version of this game, and honestly I probably put an hour of entertainment in it. So this one, when it comes down to actually having to put my money where my mouth is, I probably would never actually purchase this game. It's not super surprising, since this was a 2016 release, that there aren't any newer games. I give usually about 4 years. So if it was 2020 or 2021 and we were looking at this and they still haven't made a new game, I'd at that point consider the developer have abandoned their developer name and their publisher name, and they've either gotten out of the video game industry or they've started working under some other name or for some other company. But this is not bad enough to leave the wish list. There are two things as we move forward that can happen here. We can have a game that is bad enough and should be removed completely, and what I have is some notepad files on the right of the screen, where one labeled remove, one labeled top, and one labeled follow. So if the game is a 2018 game and it doesn't have any reviews, that should be on the follow list. If it's a game I absolutely want to play, I'm trying to put that at the top of my ranking on the wish list. That way, if people want to support my channel and gift me a game through by looking at my wish list, they actually know which ones I actually want to play. And the third list is just the remove list, and ideally all the bad stuff will get removed and the wish list will be a lot more manageable, because it really is right now just a never before managed mess. I imagine a little bit during the last Steam sale I went through some games and removed some games, but not enough, certainly. I should have done this probably 3 or 4 years ago and on an annual basis. This game is Earth Defense 4.1, The Shadow of New Despair. There's an entire series in Japan called Earth Defense Force. It's robots and mechs fighting and military people fighting giant bugs and kaiju like Godzilla. You can see it's 90% positive in the last 30 days, 95% positive over its entirety of its game. Inherently, this is kind of a hidden gem to the Western world, though, and so this would be definitely a game I'd want to play more of. There's a shooter version of a sequel, but you can see, if we look at this developer, I don't believe there are other Earth Defense games that have been released on Steam. Japan has just recently started to put their games on PC and on Steam, and so older versions, particularly of this series, this could have been going back as early as like the PS1 or the PS2, because the Earth Defense Force is pretty old. This is from a publisher that's kind of known, but not inherently known for publishing the greatest of things, like Schoolgirl Zombie Hunter. It's part of the Onichambra series world, and so you can see 2016 Onichambra Z2 Chaos. There's a lot of other Onichambra games too. These games just haven't been released to PC, so we will, over the course of, I would say, the next 3 or 4 years, start to see a lot of these older games brought to PC. And you'll be seeing me open a decent number of extra tabs specifically to add things, just to double check that things are on the wish list. Onichambra is a ninja girl in a bikini fighting zombies game that's silly. The sequel, sticking with just games that start with E, Earth Defense Force 4.1, the Wing Diver shooter, is kind of a spin-off, because instead of being a 3D, more tactical fighter shooter game, this becomes a top-down shoot-'em-up bullet hell game. So it's the same character in the same world, it's just going to be a different experience. So yeah, that should be on my wish list too, although it could be particularly difficult to actually play those games, because they might be a little too niche, they might be a little too hard to actually beat. Next we have Earth's Dawn. For brevity's sake and just to save time, because this is still going to be a long recording, probably with multiple breaks in it, where I'll just recommend people pause the video and take a break. Earth's Dawn, it's 83% positive. It's a side-scroller game of some sort. There's nothing here that on the face of it looks like it needs to be removed from the wish list, so there's really no reason to scroll down and look for more red flags. I'm putting a lot of faith in Steam reviews, and the faith diminishes when it is fewer and fewer reviews, but this doesn't look terrible. I also put a lot of faith in just my own visual aesthetic. Like, this picture is not amazingly great, but it does seem like somebody put some effort into it. When we look at the actual gameplay function, the UI, the artistic style, it doesn't look like an asset flip. It doesn't look like something made in MS Paint. It doesn't have a retro aesthetic and pixel graphics for really no reason. It doesn't have a smooth, shaded, low polygon CGI look. There definitely are several different instances of low effort games, as I call them, that really make them stand out. Next we have a game called Earthlock, which is an adventure RPG strategy game. There will definitely come to a time where I'll have to consider what RPGs to play, and certainly also what, if any, JRPGs to play. And a game like Earthlock probably would not fall into that category, so it would have to either stand to the side of that idea or be unique in some way, because if I was going to try and play a typical RPG, it probably wouldn't be Earthlock. This looks like it's probably a fine game, but no real knowledge or information about it. A 17 to 28 hour, this is how long to beat, by the way, information. 17 hours to beat the main story to 28 hours to be a completionist. For me, would probably take somewhere around 19 or 20 hours to beat the main story. So that's a lot of commitment as far as time for a game that's unknown. I have some other plugins that will show awards or Metacritic reviews, so we won't be paying too much attention to those either. This is from some plugin, whereas these reviews, I believe, are by default in Steam, I think. But again, it's at a threshold. Also, since this is a 2018 game, this could have just been demoted to the follow list, and then I really wouldn't have had to decide or make a decision as far as whether I want to keep it on the wish list or not. And I often do get crippled by decisions, so I try to avoid it somewhat. This one, for example, is a great example of just a game that needs to be demoted down to the follow list. This is a adventure indie casual single player game according to the tags. Looks like it probably is a bit of a point and click adventure game, but they have a tendency these days to not actually label them as point and click adventures unless they look very much like an old school point and click adventure and they're trying to sell themselves as that. So the problem here is this only has 21 reviews. So yeah, 90% are positive right now, but it's too easy for a developer, a game developer, to get potentially 21 people to review their game positively. It's hopefully a little bit more difficult for a developer to get 100 people to review their game and it come out to be positive. So this one needs some more time in the oven, as it were. Next we have a game called Eat All the Things, which is an early access adventure from 2018. Again, a mostly positive game, but only 10 reviews, so that can go to the follow list too. Had I done this before, had I realized that I needed to move these newer games to the follow list, would have been a lot easier. Next we have this game called Echo, which I would classify as a AA in my own personal system of single A, AA, and AAA games. Although I'm not 100% sure if I consider an indie game a single A or if there's actually a category below single A. But I'd call this a AA because it looks like a AAA game, but is actually kind of short and kind of limited in what it is. It's this slightly weird puzzle game. If we sit here and watch all the trailers, this will take forever. Let's see how long it is. This trailer is 7 to 10 hours, 72 on Metacritic. It's a very, very pretty game, but it does kind of run its puzzle aesthetic pretty thin. You play as this character who wanders through an area, and I believe there's a point where there's a bunch of clones that follow you, and they're like computer generated clones, and they will do the same thing that you did in the previous turn. So something happens and the characters will walk if you walk, they'll run if you run, if you jump over the edge of something they'll jump, and they'll just try to get towards you and attack you. And so it becomes this kind of stealth Stealth, puzzle, platformer game. It's probably not so much of platforming. You see a little bit of shooting there, but I don't think you have much as far as bullets. And potentially rooms like these can get too big for their own good. At least that's what I've heard. I'm like basically reviewing this game and spending way too much time talking about it, for considering I've never played it. And I definitely do want to play it, and that's why I have more knowledge about it. So I'm going to put that on the top of my list. This is a 2017 game, just for reference, from a developer who also hasn't ever made anything else. So you get into this weird point where a significant number of games on Steam are made by people who've never made anything else. This one is a game I'm going to have to make a decision on by. Echo Lake is 92% positive of 14 user reviews. The problem here is it's a 2017 game. It came out January 27th, 2017, so it's been nearly 2 years, a few months shy of 2 years, for this game to get anybody to actually play it and review it. And while I desperately would like to play a game and find out that it's a hidden gem and have it on my YouTube channel and have it blow up the game or blow up my YouTube channel with popularity, it's not really gonna happen. Like, it's highly unlikely there are actually any hidden gems. This is also a game that is in early access for 2 years, so even with its small amount of positive reviews, I'm probably going to remove it. This developer has never made anything else. This publisher has never published anything else. It gets really questionable, certainly, why a publisher would not have published something over the course of at least a year. I could see maybe a really small time publisher saying, we're going to only publish one game a year. But if you go even a month past that, what are you doing as a publisher? How are you making money? How are you running a business and all? So yeah, that's our first remove. Next we have a game called Echo of the Wilds, which is rated very positively. It's tagged as an indie survival adventure crafting sandbox. This might come down, this game may very well come down to just a subjective thought of this maybe is not the kind of game I want to play. Let's see. They say it's a puzzly, narratively adventured featuring randomized wilderness survival. Explore and survive the mysterious tale of the wilds. Gather resources. Okay. This looks like a weirdo game, and I am sometimes a sucker for a weirdo game. And I'll keep it on the wish list for that. But just looking at the tags, if you told me it was a game was a survival crafting sandbox game, a la something like Rust or Minecraft or something like that, I probably wouldn't be super interested in it. Don't get me wrong, I love Minecraft, but I don't think I would want to play anything that was also very similar to Minecraft. Next we have a game called Echoplex, which is a puzzle platformer with a full motion video story. A lot of these have been added to the wish list a while ago, and so there's some weirdness here. As far as, I don't remember adding these games. I don't remember these games. This looks like it's alright, even though it's a 2018 game, and by all rights it should just be on the fall list. I think I can be a little generous and just leave this one on the wish list, because it has slightly above that 25 limit. Let's see if Indie Nova has published anything else. Well, apparently they published... No? Nothing else that I recognize. Interesting. Might be a Chinese indie publisher. These might be good games, these might be bad games. This is the new developer beta where you can click on a publisher or developer's name and end up somewhere differently, and everything looks different, so you have to kind of hover over things to see if a game has any reviews. This one does have reviews, but everything else seems like it doesn't. Well, Rush Rover is rated very positively with 126 reviews, whereas Yesterday only has 9 reviews, so nothing there. Draw a Puzzle has 461 reviews, and Rescue the Great Demon 2 has 382 reviews. Interesting. Looks like a Chinese or at least some Asian country publisher, developer. Could be Japanese, could be Korean. That doesn't look like Korean writing though. Moving on, we have Eden Rising Supremacy, which is 78% positive, but it's a tower defense game in early access. So I'm pretty much not interested in a tower defense game. Even if it is trying to be something a little bit more interesting or graphical or make it look better, this feels a little bit like Dota, where I guess Dota in a small way is kind of a tower defense game, or League of Legends, one of those games I'm thinking about. I could be calling it Dota and meaning could be meaning something different. It says it's single player and multiplayer. Let's see. I hate these trailers that just have all these credits on them. You get, this is a 42-second video and half of it is not showing gameplay. Yeah. Honestly, this looks too much like a MOBA of before anything else. So it looks like a MOBA. It says it's tagged as a tower defense. It's in early access. I think this is an easy enough one to remove from the wish list. I must have been pretty generous. You can see also, here's a great example of a developer. While the most recent game is rated mostly positive, all the other games are rated either negatively or neutral. Roller Coaster Tycoon World and Roller Coaster Collection is interesting. Apparently this developer was doing licensed jobs for a long time, and here the other developer that worked on this game also isn't really doing outstanding work as far as having a name to lean on, and as far as the publisher, they're brand new. So yeah, again, more evidence that this game shouldn't make it to the wish list. Now it is possible that what is going to happen is somebody who's a fan and who sees my video here will recommend a game to me, and maybe they'll come back and recommend Eden Rising Supremacy and say, oh no, it's actually a good game, and then I will definitely put it back on the list and probably put it at the top of the list, because I would be much more willing to trust fans that watch my video, that watch my channel and know me, and say actually this game would be really good for you, than just random general populace of Steam users. Moving on, we have Ed and Harvey's game, a point-and-click adventure game from Dalek. This is a half comedy, dark humor horror game of the Ed and Harvey series, which I believe there's a couple of them out there. Let's see. What else what is it? Ed and Harvey, Harvey's New Eyes, and Ed and Harvey The Breakout. So there's at least a couple of Ed and Harvey games, and I'd love to play them, certainly. So there's no reason why that would leave the wish list. yeah, next game on the wish list was Ed and Harvey the Breakout. Next we have Egypt Old Kingdom, which is rated 90% positive in the last 30 days of 10 user reviews. It's a 2018 game, which is weird because I would have kind of sworn that this game was actually something that was released and made in the 1990s. Like, this really does strike me as something that could have been a 1990s game. Maybe this is a remaster or a remake of something like that. I feel like, personally, being of enough age to remember the old school stereotypical, probably wrong, you know, movies with Egypt and mummy movies and such. I feel like even if it's historically accurate, it's still, we could do with a couple more mummy games, a couple more Egypt games. Now, there's no saying for sure that there even is a mummy in this game at all. This is just a simulation, turn-based historical game. It has probably some interesting ideas it can throw out there, because living on the Nile in Egypt and trying to use that one water source to survive is quite a feat. But this also would be a farming simulator game, so I might decide never to actually play it. And then you can see there's a pre-dynasty Egypt and a Marble Age and Egypt the Old Kingdom and a Bronze Age, so several old school looking, well, historical based games, not old school looking. Of course, you'd also get into the question of, do I play Egypt Old Kingdom or would I play Age of Empires, a much more recognizable, much more familiar game, because I'd put those two as the same style, but there's no reason why that would get removed. Next we have Egyptian Senate, which I almost certainly typed in the word Egypt and added several games to the wish list with Egypt in the name. Senate is an old school game that I'd like to learn, like a really old game, and I kind of feel a connection certainly there as a video game critic and a video game player, that yeah, I'd like to learn some of the older games and know what people hundreds of years ago were playing. You can see it's rated very positively. I imagine this developer hasn't made anything else, and this is a 2015 release, so it's a little rough on the graphics, to be fair, but not so terrible. Also, when you see a menu like this, it kind of feels like it might be a cell phone port, but I'm not going to inherently just remove games from the wishlist because they might be cell phone ports. Next we have 8 Minute Empire. This is right on the cusp with 27 reviews, 74% are positive. So I need to make a decision. Do I want this short, or at least tagged, board game that probably only takes 8 minutes to play? There is certainly an appeal that if I could make 8-minute episodes, or in all honesty 10-minute episodes, it is like the minimum you want to make on YouTube for automatic mid-roll ads, if you are running ads, which my channel's not monetized right now, at least, and probably not for several years. The 10-minute episodes could be a way of making a lot of content really fast, which is something YouTubers always strive to do. This looks a lot like a game I've seen before, although the board is different. It looks like it's a pretty simple game too. It looks a little bit like Carcassonne and Risk merged together. Of course, all board games are kind of generically the same. Let's see. Emperor Edition is $11.99. So what else does it include? It includes a lot of DLC and, well, different maps too. So they're gonna rip you off at a pretty high price for board games, which is not atypical. That's kind of how it always goes with board games that are converted to digital games, and often it's not really worth it. Now, unfortunately, if you want to look at the reviews, they don't tend to load in. So let's see. Like, here's a review. I purchased the game and quickly realized you need to pay for each additional map, something like $3 to $4. I'm sorry, but that's insane for such a small and simple game. Also, there's should be option for longer games. I like the art, I like the gameplay, but even at a discount, the game is $20 fully unlocked. I played way more interesting games with way longer gameplay for less than $10 as a base price. I think Terraria was 10 to 14 games and I got 100 hours out of that. Luckily I was able to request a refund. This game might be great as a board game, but not as a video game. Not a complete game. Game comes with very little content and requires you to purchase additional content in game. So it's kind of the same problem over and over again. So good thing I looked and investigated further. I think there certainly is a point where Steam is not very good about promoting small games that people haven't heard of. So I suspect once this got enough negative reviews, it stopped getting promoted or shown to anybody. And so if we came back a year from now, it still probably would only have 27 user reviews. That being said, I could very possibly have purchased that game without doing enough investigation, and I felt really dumb for it. This developer also has a game that very recently came out called Istanbul, which looked interesting, certainly. I think I put this on my fall list, or if not, we'll get to the eyes and find out that it is on the fall list. They did seemingly at least improve their skill and make a slightly more complicated game in their next product. But yeah, as for 8 Minute Empire, that's removing. Here's an interesting question. I saw somebody speedrun this game, El Matador, but it is 64% positive. So speedrunners love these games, but speed lovers love broken games. I often find games by watching speedrunners play the games. I want to cover them myself. But this really would be putting a bad game in my wish list just to cover it, knowing it was a bad game. It really doesn't have any relevancy. It's a 2006 game. It's from a developer who's made nothing else, and a publisher who really hasn't published anything else, so there's not any connecting force here. If the publisher, say, had gone on to release a Call of Duty game, then, or if the developer had gone on to make a Call of Duty game, that would make more sense. But yeah, I have to be more serious. I have to be more critical. I need to whittle down this wish list. So El Matador is getting removed. Again, maybe a hidden gem, but probably not. Probably just a hidden gem to people who are speedrunning the game. And inherently, when I watch somebody who speedruns a game, they skip the cutscenes, they skip the story, and they're doing something that is totally unintended to happen in the game. So it's really a terrible way to determine whether you like a game or not. But it is usually a faster way to do it. So in comparison, if I was going to watch just a live streamer play a game, they would take hours and hours and hours to get to play the game, where a speedrunner will take just 45 minutes, maybe an hour and a half, to beat what normally would be a 60-hour game. So there's definitely a trade-off there. Next we have Elderborn. It's a brand new game, so it should be on the follow list. It's rated 94% positive right now, but it's in early access. Looking at the follow list next year will be interesting to just see how many games are still in early access about a year later. Because if they are, they probably will then be removed from the follow list. Although I've seen some games that are way older that are still in early access because people literally just abandon the Steam pages and don't add anything to them. I was thinking about doing some Lovecraftian games. There's quite a few games that they claim to be inspired by Lovecraftian games. This was a game, Eldritch here, was a game that was actually reviewed, I believe, by Giant Bomb, and that put it on my list, and that's probably why it has such a high review rating and so many people that reviewed it. But in all honesty, it kind of looks like garbage. So I'm tending to want to remove it. You can see this developer has made some other games. Let's just see if we can get reviews on this. Very positive, very positive, very positive, very positive, mixed, but mostly positive, and mostly positive. There's something about this developer, certainly. Like, he is very much in good company with his releases. But this looks really weird. Let's see how long it is. I'm trying to convince myself to not play this game. It's a 77 on Metacritic. It's 4 to 12 hours of gameplay. I guess it's short enough to leave alone. But I really was trying to convince myself to find an excuse to remove this. Although most of that is the visuals. If this game was modded to better looking visuals, I would probably be alright with it. It still looks like it's probably just a dungeon crawler though. There aren't a ton of incidences of people being super nice to games on Steam though, and highly rating them when they don't deserve it. Sometimes you'll run into a troll game that gets way over reviewed, but it's usually not 1,000 user reviews. Next we have a game called Electric Highways. It says it's free to play, so typically I don't play free to play games anyway, so I imagine this one should just be removed for that reason alone. Not 100% sure why this game would have been on my wish list. Sometimes it really feels like I have games on my wish list that weren't the games that I intended to add, so either I errantly somehow clicked a button, or some games got kicked off Steam and then their app ID got replaced, which shouldn't have been the way things worked. This developer hasn't made anything else. This developer hasn't made anything that looks recognizable. This publisher hasn't published anything else that looks interesting. Well, yeah, it's a pretty easy decision then to remove Electric Highways. It's a free-to-play game if people want to try it. There's only their own time investment is required. Let's see, this has no reviews and actually isn't even out yet. I believe this, what is this? A simulation game of electronic equipment repair, which could be interesting or could be kind of boring. Inherently, like, unless you just use fake electronics, and this is a fake Nokia phone, for instance, and the insides look completely different from what the real insides look like. You're gonna have a pretty limited expansion of things that you fix, and seeing here a Vita and a Nokia, and this is a old Kindle before the Paperwhite would be like my guess. This is an old Game Boy clone. This pretty much are the cell phone or the electronics repairs a lot of people do these days, is people drop their phones and break their screens and get them replaced, or they break the headphone jacks, or they break the USB plugs. That's kind of all you fix. Yeah, that I have no idea what that would even supposed to be, but it's an interesting idea, certainly, of doing this job. Yeah, they're saying fixed over 40 devices. There is a computer builder simulator game that has gotten some press for a similar idea. Unfortunately, it's kind of basic and it's not that good. If this works a little bit better as an idea, that'd be kind of cool. But I wouldn't be surprised if it actually is not this. So that they fixed, what was this, the ZX Spectrum, and now they're playing the ZX Spectrum. So it's an interesting idea, certainly. This does look like the inside of some potential laptop. Like, this is a reasonable layout. A big question certainly would come down to the amount of knowledge and ability of somebody who is making the game. You might be a very good video game programmer, but there's really no reason why you'd be good. They're gonna hide stories apparently inside the things you fix, which is interesting. So yeah, this isn't out yet. I'll put it on the follow list. The over 40 different devices probably would get pretty repetitive pretty quickly. They're fixing a Game & Watch, it looks like, at that point. Right. As somebody who was both classically trained in electronics and programming, I can kind of speak to this game somewhat. I'm not going to claim to be the best expert on either of those subjects. In all reality, though, almost nothing gets fixed unless you're a collector. Most phones nowadays have been designed to not break the screens, and they don't need to be repaired, or it's cheaper just to buy a new one. And most other devices have been developed well enough nowadays that they don't break very often. Moving on, we have a game called Elix, which is 64% in the last 30 days, whereas it was 71% before. It says it's a handcrafted role-playing experience from the award-winner critics of the Gothic series. I don't know the Gothic series. You'll sometimes get that where it's like, okay, that might be a good reference, or it might not be. Depends if you've heard of those games before. Let's look at the reviews, because there is a pretty large difference in the rating. This is 25 to 72 hours. If I'm recalling correctly, this is the game that was just buggy, I think, at the beginning. I think that was a problem, and it was, again, probably a bad AA game, in the sense that it was it was just flawed and too ambitious. There you go. Elix is a game with many flaws, but the game excels at some aspects to make up for the deficiencies. Here we go. It's obsessively mediocre. There aren't any features that I haven't seen so far that are overtly bad, but a combination makes the entire feeling bad. I would much rather just play Skyrim, Assassin's Creed, Fallout, or some other open world RPG than this game. The game itself is beautiful, the world is creative, but the characters are nearly all the same. Arrogant, annoying, and full of themselves. Might have been a good have a good storyline. It might be a fun game, but I cannot recommend this game. Try to skim through some of these. Largely unenjoyable. This actually is probably one of the oddly reviewed games that is reviewed on a subjective idea of just fun, and I kind of have a tendency to agree. I saw somebody review this game when it first came out, and they said pretty much the same thing. Let's see. You've got the mainstream media giving it 7.5. He has a 5, but usually you don't get much below a 7, even if it's a bad game or a mediocre game. And that's really where I think this comes down to. And this is from the mega publisher THQ Nordic. That scares me for how much they are investing in getting licenses and publishing games. I'm afraid they're just going to implode in the next few years. This is from the developer of a series of the Gothic series and the Risen series, and it seems not like much else. Notice here that Steam's website is a little weird because this is 71% of 5,000 user reviews. This is its lifetime review score. They don't show you the last 30-day score that would have put it at mixed. But you know, they might actually play some tricks and sometimes switch the two around on that page. I've never thought about that. Yeah. Elix is going to definitely get its lunch eaten when a game like Anthem comes out, or the next Destiny update comes out, because it is right in that point where it's an open world sci-fi game, and they don't really have anything to compete against the AAA developers who are doing the same style of game. Inherently, I think maybe if they'd focused a little bit more on the story and made the game a linear experience, you might have a better experience there. There certainly seems to be a dislike for making a game that just has levels that start at one point and end at the other point in a linear experience, much like Halo. Like the original Halo games are not open world games, and I think you can just curate a better series of events that way if you have a little bit more control. Kind of the difference between a choose your own adventure book and a real book. Nobody's going to really say a choose your own adventure book is better than some of the best novels out there. Moving on though, we're taking way too long. I'm wandering into conversations and rants. We have Elsies Hunt. Is it Elosi? Is that how you pronounce that? Eli Osies, I guess. This one is 88% positive with 34 reviews, which puts it in a weird position. Says it's a top-down shooter, but I've yet to see a screenshot that really confirms that. I guess it is. So yeah, it gets down to the question of just like, does this game have relevancy? Is this potentially a slightly hidden gem nobody's played? Or is this just a game that everybody should forget about and most people already have forgotten about? I like the idea of the walls spinning. That's not something you see a lot in games. I like the idea of a boss fight and running. So kind of feels like it's the evolution of a infinite runner game and a boss rush game, which that's not a terrible idea. Infinite runner games in particular, not very much games, not very big games or interactive games, so adding a second gameplay mechanic would make a lot of sense. $4.99 is not a terrible price, but I'm fairly certain we're going to click on the developer and see that they haven't made anything else. So this would be a lesser known game that I think we'll keep on the wish list. And I have to click these, I forgot. Let's see. We have a negative, this is worst one. Worst twin stick shooters I've ever played. It's like someone took a bunch of Unreal assets and threw them together into an idea without playtesting, refunded. So they're using the phrase asset flip without saying the phrase asset flip in 2017, which I could see that people not knowing this. Let's see, the top-down shooter aspect is merely adequate. The feedback is a bit poor and the enemies aren't that fun to fight. It's not horrible in that aspect, but it's lacking compared to good top-down shooters like Helldivers or Judge. What really killed the game is the platform component, which just gets in the way of the top-down shooting components. Whereas, see, and that's funny because I'm looking at the game more as a platformer and an infinite runner, and I don't particularly like top-down stick shooters. So, at this point, the webpage glitched, and these are the same reviews. So, yeah. You see 2 negative reviews. We have a lot of positive reviews. I think this one stays on the wish list. Ideally, you'd want to get a game like this around 99 cents or $1.99. You don't want to pay a full $5 for a game like this. There's really no telling how long it is. But it might be a bit of a hidden gem, or it might not be. Next we have Eliot Quest. Let's see. This is a pixel graphics action adventure game. I've had such a revolt against pixel graphics game. I really, as a first thought, want to remove this game from the wishlist. But trying to treat everything fairly, looking at the 66 user reviews, seeing that it's 72% positive, and looking at the screenshots, it looks like what this is something along the lines of a Zelda 2 for the NES style game, which probably would maybe be better described as maybe a Kid Icarus style of game. I never played Kid Icarus, so I'm not sure if that's the right description or not. So I don't think I could remove this even with the pixel graphics. That's not an inherent limitation. Like, I'm not going to kick out every game with pixel graphics. It's just I've seen way too many games that are bad and low effort, and they just threw it together without any concern or care, and then they put in pixel graphics that they probably still purchased or stole or got for free off the Unity store, but they try to sell it as it's retro, and there's way too many games that are trying to be retro, and there's no need, and it's a very flooded market. Next we have Elmia, which is a anime action casual RPG 2D game. According to this, it's 82% of 47 user reviews. These are lesser known titles for sure, and it seems like you fly around. I'm having a slight problem trying to figure out what kind of game it is. It looks like it's a platformer with the ability to fly around somewhat. A game like this could be super annoying, or it could be alright, depending on how well it played. I don't see anything here that immediately tells me I don't want to play this game. This is slightly odd to have a UI bar in the middle of the screen and nothing else anywhere else. But yeah, I'm not seeing anything terrible. We could look to see if it has like 100 achievements, look to see if it has some other thing that might sell me against the game, but I think I'll leave it. It's a good thing when I shop for games I don't go by alphabetical, because that would be ridiculous. Let's see. 45 minutes is how much they spilled. Lacks overall execution. It was not responsive in the warping. Unplayable. I selected keyboard in English, and yet the subtitles are in Chinese, and the instructions are literally a picture of an Xbox controller. And here we have one that is written in either Chinese or Japanese or some Asian language. Let's see what this developer has made otherwise. They made a game called Sushi Party, and that's it. So this is like a brand new game, and it looks like it's a very different type of game. So yeah, this game is not a game that would be at the top of the list or high priority at all, and very possible that once I can bring myself to realize, look, your wish list has hundreds and hundreds of games on it, you need to be more critical and more picky. This is probably one of those games that would get removed, but right now I'm going to be generous and leave Elmia on the wish list. I do want to remove games from the wish list, but inherently I want them to be provable as bad and not just questionable. Let's see, a choice-based episodic narrative sitcom game about a person trying to get into today's esports industry. This is an early access game. This might be a funny game if it actually comes out. I can just put it on the follow list right now, so I don't have to do really any more work beyond that. ELO Hell is the name of it. So yeah, put this on the follow list, see if a year from now it's still in early access, see if anybody's reviewed it. This very possibly is a game designed to appeal to streamers, and that's about it. It's also very questionable whether there's actually any gameplay mechanics in this, or if it's just all dialogue choices. Moving on, we have elseheart.break, which would be, I guess, a use of something like a class in programming, which a few years ago would have called probably Java, and said that looked like something like Java, but now too many other languages also are class-based. Let's see, a game about friendship, love, and technology in a place where bits have replaced atoms. This is rated very positively. It's an adventure indie programming RPG hacking game. Like I said earlier, I am classically trained in programming, so I like to play a programming game every now and then. Of course, you really can't make a game that is really all about programming and hardcore programming, because you have to limit the challenges and the things the kind of code you can type, and if it gets into detailed, then most people wouldn't be able to play the game. So any programming or / hacking video game is almost certainly needs to be a new introduction for new people who have never programmed in their life, which is fine because that leaves it pretty easy for people who have programmed before in their life. But yeah, I'm not seeing any programming here. I'm gonna drink some water. Now would be a good time for you to pause the video and take a break. Yeah, I'm just watching this video and still not really getting a great idea about what the game is. They are asking a massive $24 for it too. This is an English-Swedish game. There is this level. Spent 4 hours playing. I still haven't gotten to the hacking part. It sounds super fun, but even with following the tutorial didn't work for me, and I still just wander around and not hacking anything. Here we have, I'll lay it out. If you're really interested in the hacking mechanic, that might be sufficient reason to play the game. Otherwise, I'd be inclined to give it a miss. From a gameplay perspective, there's not really much to hook a new player. There's a long period at the start where you're expected to randomly interact with people, but given no reason why you should do so. The whole socializing and partying thing isn't intuitive unless you're a person who normally be into that, and there's little in the game that pushes you in that direction. As a result, progress as far as the story actually starting is often the result of accident at best. It took me 4 hours just to wandering around, not knowing what I was supposed to do or why. Once you're able to program, there's a bit more direction and less frustration, but you're still not given much reason for doing it until later on. All in all, stick around if you're really invested in getting into programming. Otherwise, it's an exercise in frustration and shallow conversations that's not really a lot of fun. So we're getting kind of the consistent same sentences here, and that's enough, I think, to unsell me on this game. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. I do have a pretty good collection of hacking games already, programming games, and in fairness, I think most of the other hacking games really get into the hacking as a level style of gameplay. So you're given level 1-1, hack this, do this. You're not asked to learn the hacking mechanic as part of a different game, and that's probably the right way to do it. So yeah, I'm unsold on this game. I'll remove that from the wishlist. Next game we have is called Ember. It's 76% positive from 2016. It's an adventure RPG fantasy game. Again, I'll have to make a decision at some point how many Western fantasy RPGs, and by Western I mean not anime characters, like how many of those do I want to play? What are the best of the best? This one's $10 and has no information about how long it is. Most RPGs tend to be super long. So while I wouldn't inherently take this off my wish list, there will come a time in the future where I'm gonna have to say, look, I want to pick the top 10, the top 20 RPGs. Let's cover the good ones that realistically somebody could play if they loved RPGs and were always playing RPGs. And I want to do something that is slightly more coverage than simply pointing everybody towards playing something like World of Warcraft, but I also don't want to try and find some hidden gem that is an RPG game. there's nothing wrong as far as what I see on this game. It still looks pretty pretty for a 2016 game, although graphics don't look amazingly great for something that's only a couple of years old. It's a standalone game, which might be a good thing compared to, say, playing Final Fantasy 13, where then you'd commit to probably playing Final Fantasy 13-2 and Final Fantasy 13 Lightning Returns and whatever other spin-offs or continuations happen in just the Final Fantasy 13 series, let alone the entirety of the Final Fantasy series, which I guess most are supposed to be standalone independent stories. Next we have Ember Kingdom. This is 91% positive, but it only has 12 reviews. Now, I like the look of this. It looks like it might be a true indie in the sense that maybe only one person worked on it, or a very small team worked on it. Looks to be kind of an old school platformer. It says 30 plus colorful courses in which you're supposed to race through. There certainly are a plethora of low effort games that look like this, and often I will say this games like this, I wouldn't say specifically this game, but that I've seen some bad games like this that look like first year video game programmer projects, things that should never have been on sale on Steam, things that have no polish or effort on them. This feels like it has a little bit of polish on it, but I'm not 100% sure it has enough polish on it. The weird thing is, these platforming games, they just don't exist anymore. No AAA developer is going to make a platforming game, and they wouldn't have made one, particularly a 2D platforming game, in decades. Not even Nintendo, with Mario, would make a true 2D platforming game. Even when they made New Super Mario World, they put 3D elements in it and added a bunch of more elements. This developer has not made anything else since then. This really is just too big of a risk. And if I was going to play a platforming game, it would be much better to play the Shanti series. So it seems basically I'm going to say this might be a hidden gem, but I'm not willing to even pay a discount off of $3.99. According to Steam charts, this game had an all-time peak of 10 people playing it, so really nobody ever did get around to playing it. And inherently, I think that's what a lot of developers and publishers also need to realize, is that Steam is not the place for your student projects. Steam is very possibly not the place for your indie projects. Let's see. Game has some potential overall, but overall a lot of the core mechanics and design choices hinder the game and make it more frustrating than fun to play. I question people putting YouTube videos and links in the reviews of Steam. Seems like you can get away with doing it, but a lot of people got this game for free. Enter Kaboom strikes me as a beginner's first attempt at their first game. I would again probably agree with that, although this is a better looking game than some of the ones I've seen. And I really would love to have a game that was a loving homage to Super Mario Bros. 1 or 2 or 3. But well, even the difference between Super Mario Bros. 1 and 3 and Super Mario Bros. 1 and 2 are drastic. So I'd love something that was really, really good, but this isn't it. This would be a waste of money, even if I got it for 99 cents, even if I got it for 60 cents, which I think is the minimum you can pay for any game, or list any game at. It's not worth my time more than even my money. Moving on, we have Embers of Magic. This is a free-to-play visual novel, more of a Western animation style, I would say. Why is this game on my wish list? Let's see. There's no DLC, it seems, to make this a not free-to-play game. So, and I don't cover free-to-play games. It does have full audio, and that's probably what got it on the wish list, is the claim of full audio, which for almost all visual novels, I leave it at a claim because it very possibly isn't the truth. Let me see if perhaps this developer made something else that caught my eye. Nope, not really. Let's see. Yep. I must have just been on a kick of looking for visual novel games. Probably Western visual novels, as in not anime characters, that had full audio. And this must have gotten recommended. And it can leave. Clearly I went on to too many kicks. Too many ideas of growing out the wish list and being overly ambitious about what games I'd ever get around to actually playing. Let's see. Next we have a game called Emerald City Confidential, which has something to do with the Wizard of Oz. It's 91% of 46 user reviews from 2009. It's a point-and-click adventure game. I am a sucker for point-and-click adventure games. I think this one stays on the wish list just because of that. This is from Wadjet Eye Games, the developer of some other games that I know are on my wish list. So that's probably where I found it from. And it's published by Play First, which is a publisher I haven't heard of. They have slightly more positive games than they do negative or mixed games. So yeah, a simplistic 2009, almost 10-year-old point-and-click adventure game. I'd probably play a lot more relevant point-and-click adventure game first, but sometimes I do look for lesser known games like that that can be potentially hidden gems for the niche fans that love point-and-click adventure games, which is not everybody, certainly. Next we have Emily is Away, which is rated very positive. It's a recognizable name. It's probably really not too much of a game. You're basically just on this chat stream and you unveil the mystery, unveil the secret. It's free to play, and man, these item things are new, certainly. So unless you get suckered into buying the items, it's free to play. It's barely an hour long, but it was critically reviewed too, so got a lot of coverage. Probably a little overhyped. Anytime I say it was critically reviewed or I saw somebody else play the game, that probably means it's overhyped, because that's just how the video game media coverage goes. But we can see this developer only has that game and its sequel, which its sequel is also rated very positively. And so because it was overhyped, because people know the name, there's some relevancy there. That's why this will stay on the wish list. $4.99 is not terrible. Although, in all fairness, it might be a pretty boring experience too. Yeah, because you look at these screenshots, not super interesting. And pictures. You're really getting into the text. And then it gets down to, it's basically a visual novel, just with a different kind of interface, and then it doesn't have full audio, which is slightly annoying, certainly, because if I were to cover a game like these two games, I'd have to read everything out loud, or I'd have to sit in silence for a considerable amount of time. Seems like Emily is a way too, set a little bit later in time where you can actually go to the internet. Moving on, we have a game called Empathy Path of Whispers. I think we can immediately remove this. It's 64% positive, which puts it too low as far as the reviews. This probably was rated higher or not rated at all when I put it on the wish list. This is very possibly just a walking simulator, and walking simulators do certainly have a tendency to look pretty good, and in truth even the asset flips these days look good enough that they can certainly trick you. But take note, you're seeing no real UI. Maybe there was an object that was some kind of detector. You're not really seeing a thematic visual thread. Feels like there's just different types of things all over the place. If it feels weird, this is a game that's excluded from the Steam family sharing service, which most people don't even know exists. They want $19.99 on this. This is rated by OpenCritic as a 48. It has a 60 user score and a 57 critic score on Metacritic. So yeah, people not particularly happy with this game. Of course, I want to do my due diligence, and so I'm going to spend more time looking at this game than it really deserves. Let's see. See, the game itself has a lot of flaws. I don't feel like it's worth the time and money. The story is given entirely via text documents or mementos. The latter are random objects that you have to find in the world. Can't invert the y-axis. But this game is extremely repetitive and gets boring after a while. Graphics and general atmosphere are good, but the story itself is told through objects you have to find. For me, listening to a couple of dialogue lines instead of actually seeing the story evolve resulted in zero immersion and a great disinterest. So yeah, people are definitely not happy with this game. I don't think we need to go any further there. Although some of those reviews seemed to potentially maybe be written by the same person. But you know, we've never really seen a proven incident of somebody doing view manipulation in the opposite of in the negative route. It almost certainly has happened. Some developer hates another developer and tries to ruin their release of their new project, or somebody is just mad at the person for some other reason and they're writing fake reviews. But yeah, there's never been any real proof that that's ever happened, which it probably will happen in the next few years, although there have been like unabashed admittance that some developers have tried to flag reviews that are valid reviews and get them removed, and Steam typically doesn't play along with that. This publisher's published several games that I think are on my wish list. That being said, what does that even matter though? Like, why am I even looking at the publisher? This game is definitely getting removed from the wish list. Even that kind of is a problem with all walking simulators, though, is that they live or die on the story and the prettiness of their environment, because that's all you've got to tell. So a game like the game I covered, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, would have been a horrible game if the story was bad, or it would have been a horrible game if the graphics were very bad. But since both were very good, the game itself is very good. See, next we have a Empire of Undergrowth, a very positively reviewed ants colony simulator. It's early access, so what do I do with early access games that are over a year old? I guess I put this on the follow list. Inherently, I guess maybe next year I will remove all early access games from the wish list and put them to the follow list. Because if a game is in early access, it just shouldn't be a game that I want to cover, because I refuse to play or purchase games that are in early access. So that needs to be moved to the follow. Next we have Endless Fable Frozen Path. This is a 84% positive with 19 user reviews, which is too few for hidden object game for $14.99. I'm getting rid of most of the hidden object games on my wish list. They're too expensive. They're never hugely good quality. That style of game doesn't entertain me. Well, it certainly seems to sell to some people, though. Like, very consistently you'll see Big Fish Games release hidden object games for $12.99, and other people release hidden object games for $10, when in all honesty they should be priced a lot cheaper. Next we have Endless Space. Another style of game that really doesn't interest me a lot is space games. This one is rated mostly positive. It's from the Sega publisher, so I think inherently that makes it relevant. I keep saying inherently too often. I know I have vocal tics and they drive me crazy more than anybody else. Because this is a Sega published game, it has relevancy. So it should stay on the wish list. This is from the developer who's made several Endless games, so I imagine we may run into some other games with Endless in the name. Maybe, maybe not. Next we have a game called Energy Cycle, a new puzzle game. That's what it says. It seems like it might be a mostly simplistic one-screen Unity game. I want to see actual gameplay. You have this Pikachu-esque energy cat. Click each cell in the game field, it changes colors. It seems like it's a cell phone port with only 28 levels. Yeah, this does not strike me as something that needs to be played ever. It's kind of surprising they have 42 user reviews on that. But I'll remove that. They've also have a game called Energy Balance and Energy Cycle, and then several mixed reviewed games. Their newest game is called Energy Invasion. And just look here at this screenshot and then look at this thumbnail. That's clearly they spent all of their development money on the thumbnail, and then they made a low effort game. This is a game that's an Arkanoid clone, and clearly this developer is trolling more than actually developing games, or at least they're just not good at making games. So yeah, that's getting removed from the wish list. We may actually not be that too far from the end. If we're at ENI right now, I doubt there's too much. Next we have Enigma Prison, which is an easy decision because it has no announced date whatsoever. And so that just goes on the fall list. Generally speaking, I'm trying not to read or learn about release dates or about games that don't have release dates. I'm trying to learn about games as they come through the What's on Steam Twitter bot, which tells me like every game that comes out on Steam. So if it doesn't have a page, if it doesn't have a release date, if it's just something that, say, PC Gamer is talking about, or they have an exclusive interview with the developer, well, those games usually are so far off, and I don't want to jump on a hype train that might go for 2 years to then only be disappointed when I find out the game isn't even that good. So I'm trying to get away from hype trains. I'm trying to have the fall list really not include games that are coming out, just games that have come out in some form or fashion. And as far as Steam is concerned, I don't think getting people on the hype train is the best business move anyways. Next we have Igmatus 2, The Mist of Ravenwood. This is another hidden object game for $9.99. Again, easy decision. Even though it is 97% positive of 477 user reviews, I'm pretty much swearing off playing hidden object games. Unless somebody wants to gift the game to me or recommend that I play a hidden object game. Let's see, Ignatus 3, Enigmatus, and Enigmatus 1. So this is a series. I might actually undo what I just said. Actually, yeah. I think because it's a trilogy of games, I will keep the Igmatus series on, because as I was thinking about it, as I was just saying it out loud, like I was changing my mind. I'm like, well, wait a minute, if I do ever want to play a hidden object game, how will I know where the best hidden object games are, or something that would be really nice to show off if I take them all off the wish list? So I'll keep these. I'll keep this trilogy. But yeah, I need to think straight. Odd that Igmatus 1 was not shown on the wishlist, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the way I'm launching all of these tabs, if we're skipping a few games on accident. So it may come out to actually be true. We did not, through all this effort, actually look at everything that was on my wish list. We only looked at, say, 90% or 80% of all the games on my wish list. That'd be fine, I suppose, because there will, at least in a couple of years, have to come back and look at the wish list again and filter some more things. Even if we only next year look at the fall list, which will be much smaller. Moving on, we have Enter the Gungeon. This one was a kind of overhyped game. People certainly loved it. I'm not 100% sure I ever want to really play it, but I am willing to bow down to the mass public and say, look, if people say this is good, you've got 18,000 reviews on this game, Devolver Digital published game. There's got to be something here worth at least doing a spotlight on, even if it may not be the game for me. Let's see. Seems like there's one game this developer made before this point that's free and rated very positively. So that's weird, because then that gives you some weird relevancy where I typically wouldn't play a free-to-play game, but in this case I think I would, just to play this to then say, okay, the developer of this game has also made Enter the Gungeon. Whereas if I was just thinking about covering this game, I doubt I would cover it, although it doesn't look inherently terrible. It's an interesting idea for a platformer. You don't see people shooting ropes across different planes and climbing them. Let's see, moving on. We have Entropy Rising. It's 29 user reviews at 58%. I think this one can be removed. It looked pretty as a game. It looked like another Portal-esque clone. There certainly were a lot of clones of the Portal games. It's pretty easy to do too, because most of the code and source and stuff was available to use. That being said, time has proven that people don't like it. Slow, boring, or repetitive, the gimmick wears off fast. Let's see, I keep trying to get into the game, but I just can't. I didn't find it very interesting, unlike other games such as Portal or the Talos Principle. Played the entire game, and after considering it a while, don't think I can recommend it. It has a bit of a Portal feel without any story and none of the humor. What's important here are puzzles and the mechanics, and apparently they didn't like those either, if I was to guess. Yeah, that's enough negative reviews to tell me that this one isn't the one to play, even at 99 cents too. Like, they've even got it down to a price where you would think, oh well, how can you really complain about a 99-cent game that has at times been as low as 74 cents. I imagine some of these reviewers bought the game at a higher price than that though. In general, it'd be really nice if when you see someone's review right next to the how much did you play, it'd be helpful to know how much did you pay. And all they say right now is that you can it was either purchased directly through Steam or it was activated by a Steam key. I think those are really the only two options that it says. Although it might be kind of impossible, if not illegal, to disclose how much somebody paid for a game. But then you'll get positive reviews that say it's decent for 99 cents. I am thinking to myself about overriding these reviews and still keeping this game on my wish list. But I've got so many games. A mixed review game should not be a game I cover. I need to have better standards than that, so it's going. Unless somebody comes back and tells me Entropy Rising really is worth 99 cents, then I'll add it back. Next we have a game called Environmental Station Alpha, so we're probably pretty close. At the very least, we're very close to the end of the EMs. Explore abandoned places. It's a Metroidvania game. There's a lot of Metroidvania games on Steam. A lot of them have a tendency to add something different to them. So if you really did want to just play, I cannot click on this image. If you really just wanted to play something that was like Super Metroid, you have a tendency to not actually run into games like that. You'll run into games that are sort of like that. I'm skipping through this video, and this video is either corrupted or I don't know what. It's rated 91% positive with 447 reviews. I think this game falls under the category of I have to just bow to the crowd, bow to the masses, and say people have played this game. They've put down potentially $7.99. They like it. The pixel graphics certainly can be an issue. Like, that sometimes does convince me to not play a game, but I can't have that as the only reason to not play this game. People say this is good, I leave it on the wish list. See, next we have Ephemerid, a musical adventure. Let's see. 91% positive of 149 user reviews again in 2015. This looks like it's a musical adventure game of some sort. It doesn't seem like it's too much of a musical game, but it might be. I could see myself potentially buying this game and finding out that I can't really play it because I have no rhythm. It's $1.99. But I bet I could play it. Like, this doesn't look like a Rock Band-esque music tracks game. It sort of kind of looks like a combination of several different simplistic games. And a lot of mouse movements, but yeah, that looks pretty doable. This developer has made nothing else though, so I'll leave that on the wish list. Next we have Epic Loon, which is one that you should go to the follow list just because it's not a year old and doesn't have enough reviews. This is probably a horror game of some sort, some weird graphics game. Like, I think I've seen people talk about this game and I can't even really describe what it is. Let's see. Dive into the bizarre world of Epic Loon, a quirky physics platformer for up to 4 players, an offbeat tribute to classic movies. So you load in a clone of a movie onto the TV, and then the players have to run through a level that's based off that movie. So if you load in the Godzilla movie, for instance, then you have a running platforming level based after that I don't think changes too much. Really weird. Certainly. Next we have Area's Action. This might be another Super Mario Brothers style game. The difference here is it's 89% positive of 722 user reviews, which gives it a lot more reviews and a lot more relevance. And like I said before, I definitely do want to play something that is a loving tribute to a Super Mario Brothers game, but it has to be pretty good. And this, I think, falls into that category. Let's see. What else has this developer made? Nothing. Nothing at all. I've forgotten the name of the previous game that we just removed, but I kind of suspect that it was very similar to this name. I know they both started with E, so perhaps one developer took the name of another developer and tried to make a simplistic clone of it. That is not unheard of, to try and steal some developer's lunch by this could be one of these games that is a rage quit death game, and that might explain why more people are willing to play games like this. Yeah, this probably is a rage game, so I might not want to play it for that. I'll have to think about that. Because if you turn Super Mario Brothers into a rage game, for as much as it may have been a rage game when it originally came out, you're giving a different experience for sure. Next we have Escape Dead Island. This wouldn't be on the wish list if I just didn't inherently want to play all the Dead Island games. Oddly, except for the first Dead Island game, Escape the Dead Island is probably the second best Dead Island game that they've made, which is just to speak so terribly on the Dead Island series. If you liked Dead Island 1, or if you have any interest in playing Dead Island 1, you're much better just moving on and playing Dying Light, which was the next game made by the developers of the first Dead Island game. It is almost 100% clear cut that the developer, Techland, who made Dead Island 1, was the people that made Dead Island 1 good, not the publisher Deep Silver. Because once Techland stopped working with Deep Silver after Dead Island 1 and made Dying Light is a much better experience. It treats the customer a lot better, and Deep Silver, while having the license to the Dead Island series, has been unable to release anything that that even slightly interests people. The Riptide Definitive Edition, the Definitive Edition wasn't hugely well received for the original game. Riptide Definitive Edition right now sits at mixed reviews. The Retro Revenge side game is at mixed reviews, and Escape Dead Island is sitting at mixed reviews. So like every game in the series is not doing well, which is very pathetic. I mean, all it is a zombie game. It's pretty easy to make a zombie game, and yet still they've yet to capture that magic. Moving on though, we have a game called Escape First. It's a multiplayer escape the room game. Is it in VR? Let's see. It includes 3 different escape rooms to choose from and can be played competitively, co-op, or solo. Okay, so Escape First can be played single player, which is good, because otherwise it would have removed the list right there. I would like to do an escape room game. Unfortunately, so many of them are VR only. This one does support VR, but it says VR is not necessary. You can play with a desktop using keyboard and mouse / gamepad, which is how all VR games should have been. Inherently, if VR was going to succeed, Oculus and the Vive should have both had a 100% rule that no games are going to be exclusives into VR. So in a weird way, there's not a lot of reason for this, but I'm not putting a lot of E-letter games at the top of my wish list anyways, so I'm going to put Escape First on at the top. This would be a moderately short experience. I think it would get some YouTube clicks. It'd be moderately fun for me to play too. I'm interested in this. I'm not sure I'd ever really want to do a actual real world escape room. There is certainly also a difference from playing a game solo and doing the escape room and doing a real world escape room where you're gonna be in a room with at least a few of your friends and have to work cooperatively. I imagine we'll see more games like this as the escape room fad continues to be moderately successful. And you know, a game like this is way better than an asset flip horror game. It's way better than a walking simulator. There is a series of Japanese games that are escape the room games that are a little bit more anime and horrific and bloody, particularly the Nonary series is one to keep an eye on. So I could see myself playing this and then playing some of the Nonary series games. Let's see, next we have Escape from Princess. Let's see, this is a 2018 game, 100% positive. Let's see, oh, it's tagged with nudity and sexual content, sorry for that. Inherently, a lot of these games were not nudity before, and Steam's stance changed. So I definitely had some games on the wish list that I specifically knew were sex games and games I'd particularly like to own and support the industry, but also games that as a YouTuber I know I couldn't really stream on YouTube or Twitch or any service like that until somebody decides to create a service where it's okay to do sex games, but you know, age gate them appropriately. Yeah, I have actually had thoughts of just streaming straight to Pornhub or some other porn site with the sex games. But so there were definitely some games on there on the wish list like that, but then there also were a lot of games that I specifically had on the wish list, and that previous one, Escape the Princess, was probably one of the games I had on the wish list because they were censored versions on Steam up until recent versions, and I'm assuming they're getting patched, just ever so quietly getting patched with the uncensored content. And the idea of having censored versions, frankly having both versions is a good idea. It wouldn't be terrible if you could buy a censored version of a game by default, and then at the beginning when you launch the game it pops up and says, hey, if you download this 1 megabyte free DLC, it'll uncensor everything. Particularly when you remember that a lot of these games are from Japanese companies, a lot of these games are for the Japanese market, and in Japan full uncensored nudity is actually legal. They're oddly conservative about that. They're one of about 23 countries that are on Steam that don't allow full uncensored nudity. So it makes a lot of sense to have different versions so you can sell your game worldwide. Getting away from that conversation though, we have a game called Escape Game, which again would be an escape the room kind of adventure, but there's nothing visually impressive about this. Basically looks like an asset flip of some pretty bad assets. I'm not sure why this was here, even if it is 99 cents. Look at this bundle. This is a very red flag bundle. This is not actually on Steam though. This is a different bundle, I think, from a different website that the plugin is showing. But yeah, not an impressive looking game at all. It shouldn't be on the wish list. It's from a developer, Rewind app, which is actually a troll developer. Like, anytime you see hentai in the name, that's a low effort name and a low effort game, pretty much. Let's see, a long list of mixed reviewed and negative reviewed and just not reviewed games. Yep, this is pretty much what they mean when I call something a troll developer. They just make a lot of games not really designed to entertain anybody or sell and make profit, but games designed to kind of trick people. Often the games are designed to give you easy achievements, or just to be a joke. The main thing is the developer is not actually acting like a professional businessman trying to make money. They're being lazy at the very least. Let's see, next we have Scapegoat, which is rated very positive, or Scapegoat 2. Why not Scapegoat 1? This is a platformer puzzler game where you're playing as a goat. I imagine I put this on my wishlist because of Goat Simulator being a bit of a viral hit. It's not a terrible idea to have a platformer where you play as a goat. I don't want to end up playing too many platformers throughout my life, but I might be willing to keep this because of its high review, 96% positive. Yeah, that's really hard to decide to remove that. It's also from Double Fine, the publisher, Scapegoat 1. Let's see. This is weird. The publisher is Double Fine Presents, which is Double Fine, or publishing division of Double Fine, that's publishing indie games. And you can see that puts them in pretty good company. Oddly, Gang Beast, which is a very recognizable name, is the worst reviewed game on this list. I believe Ooblets was a bit of a Pokemon clone. I don't think it's out yet. So, yeah. But they were not the developer of the first game, or the publisher of the first game. So the Scapegoat series, yeah. Let's put that on the wish list and double check. Actually, I don't have a way of highlighting games that I need to add to the wish list later. So maybe if I highlight the text above them, I'll remember that means go back and make sure that's added. But then I just clicked on the page and that went away, so that didn't work. Okay, next we have Soulcaster Part 1 and 2. I think this one gets removed immediately. It's a 2011 game. It's had 7 years to get reviews and it only has 9. It's a tower defense game, according to its tag. And these are user recommended tags. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think I need to go any further. It's Soulcaster. I don't even know why it's in the wish list in the first place. And we're looking at E's. So why am I looking at an S? I must have just opened this. Yeah, I just opened this other game to look at it. Okay, well, that's not on the wish list in the first place. I'm getting confused. These take way too long. Yeah, Ooblets is a Pokemon-esque clone of sorts, with farming. At least that's what it's selling itself as. But yeah, not a neat game. Next we have a game called Escape Legacy Ancient Scrolls. This is too new. It's almost a brand new game. This game, when I first looked at it, maybe a very high quality asset flip. Maybe not really much of a game at all, or maybe actually a pretty good game. It's kind of hard to tell. Then you look at the developer and yeah, they've got nothing else. So this one goes on to the follow list. We'll give it a year, see if people cover it. It is very common for low effort developers to put pretty women as the characters in their games, but generally it's uncommon for them to also make a good game or even something that looks slightly like a good game. Usually what happens is you'll get pretty women or anime girls in the game, and then the gameplay mechanics look awful and you're shooting the most generic ugly zombies you could possibly have ever gotten off the Unity asset store. Right, next we have a game called Essence, which is 66% positive. Surreal nonviolent exploration adventure in a world where you don't remember seeing before. Place forgotten in time. Sounds like a VR walking simulator. This one can get removed for a couple of reasons. It's a year old and it's still in early access. It's not got good reviews right now. They want $20 to begin with. Says it's VR, but there's actually no VR in this. Where did I see VR? Maybe I just read that. No, it's tagged as VR under the user tags, but over here it says no VR, and over there it says no VR. It says VR support in the future. Okay. So that's not particularly a reason to remove it, but I think the negative reviews certainly are. We'll let the reviews load and take an idea of just what the complaints are. Let's see. Yeah, one in an Asian language, negative reviewed. Let's see. Would not recommend this unless you really are into walking, running types games. If you want something more colorful and fun, get Abzu or Air Memories of Old. I hate when reviews start. I am not one to normally write a review. Let's see. I hope the developers can put together a compelling story to admire the game. The story is what? Huh? No continuity or direction in the game, as far as I can tell. A walk in direction with no purpose in the game. And there are entire YouTubers who play walking simulators, and like, this is probably a bad one. I certainly don't want to be a YouTuber that plays walking simulators. I'll play a few of them if they're really good, but this one is definitely not really good. So let's move forward. Next we have Eternal Card Game. Another card game. There's probably, I would say, about 20 too many card games on my wish list. When compared to something like Magic the Gathering Arena, which is in beta, or Hearthstone, which I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or Artifact being made by Valve, the idea that a lesser known, even AA developer is going to stand a chance is pretty much not a realistic idea. This looks, all the games look very much like Hearthstone, and while this does have some polish and nice look to it, nobody is going to have the budget as Activision Blizzard does to continue to develop and add cards. This is early access, free to play, but I imagine you have to buy the card packs. Apparently it's coming to iOS too, which might get some more people. Certainly a lot of people have played it. Let's look at the mixed reviews and see what people who have played the game think about it. Let's see. To be brief, you will love this game. The first few hours playing it seems perfect and balanced and enjoyable without random effects ruining the games. I enjoyed a lot of different of the first 30 hours until the point was definitely recommend. However, as you progress, you'll hit one really frustrating thing about this game. Rare cards are made overpowered, and there's no chance in hell you'll get them unless you either open your wallet or spend hundreds of hours farming or beating players who just have those cards. For example, a card that's super rare and thus wallet warriors have cost only 4 to invoke, a 5/6, and also disables all flying units you may have, whereas a normal card costs 4, usually have around a 3/3 stats and do nothing. So unbalanced cards and a pay to win mechanic, that's a way certainly to kill your game. This developer really doesn't have any previous game on Steam, so why in the world would you get invested in this? Like, it's worth mentioning that a Lord of the Rings game is also a Lord of the Rings card game, and a Star Trek card game recently came out, and the Lord of the Rings game is in development. There's probably between 6 and 12 card games more important than Eternal card game coming out soon or out right now. I'm gonna drink some water, so now would be a good time for you to pause the video and take another break. When I was doing the D letters, games that start with the letter D, I literally went through, well, let's see, if each one of the 2 cups I have are 36-ounce cups, which they probably are. They're pretty big jugs, and they both had water in them. I probably drank 72 ounces of water, and I was out of water with probably about 40 minutes to still go, because it just took that extremely long. I'm sure nobody's really interested in that though, so let's move on. Next game we have is called Eternum, which looks odd. Certainly it's an odd game from Infogrames and Pico Interactive. Like, it looks like it's a really old game, but it might not be, but it might, because Infogrames is an old developer. That I don't know if this inherently means I should keep it on the even follow list. Clearly it's going to the follow list, so I'll put it on the follow list, and then it probably will get removed by the time next year rolls around, because I'm not sure this has any real relevancy. Right. And see, there is definitely a problem. If this is an old game, it shouldn't be listed as a game that was released February 8th, 2018 if it really came out in, say, February 8th, 1990. But I guess Steam needs an original release date field. I think that would be very helpful for a lot of older games to just say, hey, I know this game came to Steam on this day, but its original release date was here. I shouldn't have to go on Wikipedia and double check these games. Next we have Ether 1. So we're at the ETHs. We might be closer to the end. But I bet there's a decent number of EX games too. Ether 1 is a first-person adventure that deals with the fragility of the human mind. It's mostly positive. For the most part, I'm trying not to read the descriptions of these games and just see what people say about the game. This looks like a game that is fine. Does it require VR? It doesn't seem like it does. Let's see. Let's see. I'm trying to see where the VR comes into this. There's a tag of VR, but then there's nothing that says anything about VR. Seems like we're running into several games now that are getting tagged with VR either prematurely or inaccurately. Like, there's literally nothing here that says anything about VR. Okay, well, what do we do with this game then? We leave it on the wish list, I suppose. It seems like it's a adventure game, probably not a super long game. 5 to 11 hours. These are the kind of games I would like to cover more often so I can cover more games instead of getting stuck on games that tend to be 60 hours long or 30 hours long. Next we have a game called Euclidean, which is another Lovecraftian game, but I think the reviews are going to have this one removed, and now we're at the EU, so we're probably closer to the end than I would think. In a lot of ways, these screenshots could just be not a lot. Like, the game could be small sections, small skyboxes of some artsy effects and nothing else, which we certainly have seen games like that. And it's everything I'm seeing here is giving a feeling of something that is like a underwater world where you're suffering from dark screenshot syndrome quite a bit, where you're just not really seeing much. Yeah, this has a little bit of polish on it, but not quite enough. Let's see what the users' reviews say, in case there's some other reason it's not getting very well reviewed. Let's see. Rather meh. Despite beautiful visuals that nicely reinforce your feeling of smallness, it's hard to feel that like the universe is an incomprehensible, impersonal vastness when Yog Sothoth is laughing sinisterly in your ear through the game how you didn't matter or how this place is going to destroy you. You can't simultaneously not matter and be the subject of sadistic glee. Let's see, a near complete lack of agency might have served in helping the helplessness, but personally I felt less like a human being reduced to a puny morsel, and more like a cubist interpretation of the life of a krill in the deep ocean. The game is short, I beat it in less than an hour. So yeah, it just doesn't seem like it's very impressive as a game. Right, and I have plenty of Lovecraftian games. There's an entire tag of Lovecraftian games. So one of these days I might do a Lovecraftian month, but Euclidean won't be included in that. See, this developer, meanwhile, has one other game, Felt Tip Circus, which looks like it's a VR game too. I'm a little surprised there aren't more VR games that are just these like circus simulators and demo games and experimental games. I'm surprised more people don't try to sell games like that. See, this publisher, on the other hand, has published several other games, but most are mixed. So you're not really in good company there either. Next we have a game called Evangeline. This one needs to be removed. Now here's the reason, straight up, why this game is on the list, and it's probably the only reason why this game ever exists in the first part. There's a very famous, in case you don't know, anime called Neon Genesis Evangelion, or which is spelled somewhat like this, if not exactly like that. And I imagine if I was to play a game called Evangeline with that in their name, that might get some random people on YouTube to look at my video. Hopefully they'd like what they see to stay long enough to not realize that they've just been clickbaited, which is basically all this is. Search engine optimization / clickbait, same thing. Basically it's just different phrases depending on who's using them. So that's why this walking simulator was on my wish list. But I need to be more realistic, and I need to be serious, and I need to not give $7.99 to somebody who was probably clickbaiting their game just so I could potentially clickbait YouTube viewers. So it's time to grow up, time to be a little bit more professional. It was a thought. It probably wouldn't have worked anyways. Manipulating the YouTube algorithm is pretty much impossible these days as far as I can figure it out. If somebody else has figured out how to do it, let me know, and I'll do what you're doing. Let's see. We're at the EVAs as far as E's, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's only like 3 more games. Let's move forward. Nope, there's gonna be at least 4. Even the Ocean is a narrative action platformer about balancing the light and dark energies that hold the world together. Let's see what this really looks like. Looks like it's probably, I don't want to say RPG Maker, because it's not quite that, but I'm not 100% sure what this is. It's an idea of an RPG, certainly, from, I imagine, people who didn't make anything else. None of these names look recognizable. Seems like you're having conversations and platforming. Let's see. Okay, well, still not 100% sold on this, but it is 81% positive. So maybe I should give it a try. Give it a benefit of the doubt. It says it's 7 hours to 13 hours. There's another game in this series called Anodyne. I guess I can't be that picky. Let's see. All Our Asias rated very positively also. And Anodyne rated very positively also. I feel like I'm probably letting a game that I probably would never play through. See, this one says it's a Zelda light game, and maybe that's where this is coming from, is that very possibly I saw Anodyne at some point and that got me into wanting to play the other game. Yeah, if this is a Zelda light game and Even the Ocean is actually a slightly better Zelda game, that might make sense. And then All Our Asias. I don't know if is that really a game? Oh, All Our Asias. Or is it just the DLC fan pack? Yeah, what is this game? Free game. Explore some surreal imagery. Yeah, I think I'm probably letting something through that I shouldn't let through, to be fair, but whatever. Let's move forward. Next we have a game called Event Zero, sci-fi narrative exploration game. 78% positive of 897 user reviews. Gotta keep momentum. That's the thing I gotta remind myself, is I just gotta keep momentum. It doesn't matter if I sort through this list 100% accurately. Doesn't matter if a good game every now and then gets removed. It doesn't matter if a bad game gets left in. It's just about keeping momentum. Yeah, I don't see any reason why Event Zero would be removed. from the wish list. Like, I think it's got some hacking in it, but like when you click the plus here, there's a lot of tags. And apparently there is no hacking in this game, otherwise that would have been listed. So you have to type in things but not really hack, I see. So I think you're mostly dealing with the AI through the computer terminals. Alright, moving on. We have a game called Eventide 3 Legend of Legacy of Legends. This is $9.99. I think, again, because this is a... well, no, this is 87% positive of 49 user reviews. Again, this is a trilogy of hidden object games that seem to be moderately well reviewed. Or at least the third one is. So I'll leave those on the wish list. Maybe next year I'll decide to remove all hidden object games. Let's see, Eventide Slavic Fable. Wouldn't mind a game based on Slavic fables also. I'm not sure how accurate or how informative doing a hidden object game around that is really going to be. But this is 95% positive of 247 reviews, so clearly Eventide is one of the series if you're going to play a hidden object game. Of course, you're paying that premium. And then EverQuest 2, free to play. So I think at some point I do want to do like some small spotlight on EverQuest. EverQuest is a weird series that by all rights should have been World of Warcraft, but failed to succeed because they took too long to convert from a single player game into a multiplayer MMO game. Of course, this game is also really, really old, so I guess really I'd probably just spotlight it. And you almost certainly would play EverQuest 1, not EverQuest 2. And by the time you were bored with EverQuest 1, I think you're done. You would be willing to move to some other game. I guess I'll leave EverQuest 2 on the wish list though, just so I have some historical relevance and realize that it actually exists. Because what I don't want to have happen is that it just completely leaves my head that a sequel ever existed. I played EverQuest, I believe it was on a Pocket PC PDA, which was a predecessor to cell phones. It did everything that a cell phone didn't, so it didn't make phone calls, but it ran Windows CE, I believe, programs, and they had EverQuest. And so on a terrible low resolution screen, I played a lot of EverQuest, or some kind of port of EverQuest. This is probably also some kind of port of EverQuest, though it says it's 2012, but I'm pretty sure that there was some other EverQuest games before then. More than 16 years of continuous development includes 18 expansions of amazing content. So it hasn't been 16 years since 2012, so clearly there was an EverQuest that came out 16 years before that. So it has this weird historical relevancy, but also it kind of isn't historically relevant because it's the number 2 position to World of Warcraft. Next we have Everspace, which is a space fighting game. I think at this point, because I don't really love space games, and the fact that this is 58% positive in the last 30 days, down from 77, I could take Everspace off, but I definitely do want to know why Everspace is no longer in favor with its player base. I wouldn't be surprised. Here's my guess. The developer abandoned it and they added a bunch of microtransactions. They are going to be the complaints. Not playable in VR. It's so bad. It got me sick in 10 minutes. While I can play Elite or Star Trek for hours. Is that the only complaint? This game sucks. I love space games and this one bites. That's not much of a negative review either. Really hated it. The game it reminded me most of was FTL, if FTL was a space fighter sim rather than a crew management game. Well, that wouldn't inherently be a bad idea. You do get to buy perks between runs, but the perks don't help much. It was the lack of progress doing a run that turned me off. It's fun, I'll admit it, but there are very common problems amongst many players, including me. The problem is that after you play a certain amount of time or get a certain amount of progress completed in the game, it will not open ever again. I've checked the forums, they all say the same thing over and over again. Run with administrative privileges or check if your drivers are up to date. They don't work. Not even reinstalling works. I enjoyed my time with it very much, but the fact that I paid for this and can't play it anymore seems like a waste of money. Only 43 hours of time and I didn't even get to explore the full potential of the game. Seems like you got a lot of it though, but frankly this might be a game that is a 100-hour game. Game is gorgeous, the pacing is just not that great. Not really playable in VR. So apparently at some point this game fell off the edge. And they are trying to patch it. I think I'm gonna be really generous with this game and put it back on the follow list. By all right, it should leave. It should be removed from the wish list completely. But I don't know. You can see this developer has only really made this game. I'm gonna be really generous to Everspace and put it back on the follow list. We'll come back next year if it's still negatively reviewed, or if its overall lifetime is negatively reviewed worse, then it will get removed off. Of course, how would I remember by this time next year what I said? But yeah, that is a big drop off. If everybody played it to a certain point, put in their average play time, and then could no longer run the game, or some patch screwed it up. Seems like it's 15 hours of gameplay, which is a lot better than 43 hours. It's 10% down from its all-time peak of 1,403 players. So hoping that maybe the plug-in for the average playtime, let's say 8 hours and 12 minutes. That's not terrible. Half of how long it takes to beat the game. Next we have Everyone's Gone to the Rapture. This one, again, a game that probably was overhyped by the mainstream media, and people, real world people, didn't really like it as much as that. So it was published by PlayStation Mobile, which probably means Sony was incentivizing / bribing mainstream games media to cover this game, which is a walking simulator. Possibly they thought it might get political. This is like a 4 to 9 hour game, rated 76 on Metacritic. Firewatch is another great example of a game that was overhyped and then did get political by shooting themselves in the foot and DMCAing PewDiePie's game play footage of the video for a completely unrelated reason. Let's see what the user base has to say, why it's mixed. Almost certainly, I'll guess, I wasn't right the last time I guessed, but it's going to just say it's too long. There was a problem where you couldn't run, and so you were walking very slowly originally, but they fixed this. I played the game through the end hoping for an intriguing end to the story, but was let down. The characters generate no empathy. Very few plot points are described, and the central plot point of the game is more of a Deus Ex Machina than a well thought out antagonist. Technically, the game suffered from a lot of minor graphical issues which weren't entirely terrible, but were a significant distraction from the gameplay. I cannot recommend it. Let's see. Inconsistent frame rate with a pretty good graphics card, no puzzle solving whatsoever, zero replay value. The game's ending is practically insulting to the audience. And here you have like, I love walking simulators, yet this is negative. I think the term walking simulator gets applied more to games more than it should. And then they reference Myst, a game I love. Like, I love the game Myst. I wouldn't really call Myst a walking simulator. There's actual puzzles in the game. So they really don't like the story. And I think maybe I can make the choice then to not play this game. Inherently, I think you're better off playing Firewatch. Although, again, this is actually a game that I will never play. And I need to mark as ignored. Because I don't want to support the people that made it that don't support fair use. Like, it's just that simple. Anybody, anywhere that DMCA's a YouTuber for their coverage of a video game will never get any more coverage from me. Just as a personal choice. And Firewatch was hugely review bombed and negatively review bombed. They bounced back since then, I'm pretty sure. And then the employees that work at Firewatch, or at least one of them, moved on to work for Valve, which is slightly unfortunate. And it is also kind of worth mentioning that the employees that made up of Firewatch used to work for Telltale Games, and Telltale Games just went out of business. Let's look at what the Chinese room made. So the Chinese room also made Dear Esther, so it'd be kind of weird. Certainly is a little bit weird to play Dear Esther and have that on the wish list, but get rid of Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. But certainly the Chinese room is not the greatest of developer. They have a mixed reviewed game here. They have a mixed reviewed horror game, Amnesia Machine for Pigs. And then they just have the original version of Dear Esther and the Landmark edition. But you can't even buy the original version. Yeah, I think you get it for free though if you purchase the Landmark edition. So yeah, I'm gonna just take this off the wish list. Yeah, there's no reason. It will disappear into the wells of history, and give it 5 more years, nobody will even remember Everybody's Gone to the Rapture exists. Next is Firewatch, which in the last 30 days has bounced back to its reviews. Of course, having an employee work at Valve, the owners of Steam, might also be very helpful. So let's play with the graph here. There's this point here. We will do that. And I think this is the overall review. Let's see. And it's just review bomb after review bomb. SJWs are ruining everything. I wouldn't say everything, just a lot of things. Trying to ruin the video game industry. And so inherently there is arguments that could be made to say that that these are not valid reviews because they may be saying things that are slightly untrue, and I guess at that point they probably aren't valid reviews. On the other hand, to use a specific reference, here we go. There's a good one. If you're being honest and telling you the reason, then that's a legitimate reason. Let's see. I would recommend it, but the devs have chosen the dark path as of the time of this review. They have chosen to file false DMCA claim upon YouTube, not for actual copyright infringement for saying a bad word. Not only this, but the bad word was spoken in a video containing no content by the devs. Because of this, people who do let's plays and walkthrough videos on the game could be wrongfully taken down. Like me, make something perfectly clear: I do not hate the game. I simply cannot recommend you buy any of Campo Santo's products until they reconsider this strange and outrageous behavior. That is all. The devs are now deleting discussion threads as well as banning users that are demanding answers. It seems they have doubled down on censorship. This is reminding me of a few asset flip developers who did exactly the same thing, and this does not end well for them. Although, in all fairness, Campo Santo, it kind of did end fairly well for them. Like, I don't know if Campo Santo would ever make another game, but at least one of the employees did come to Valve, and inherently, right as this new employee came to Valve briefly for a second said that they were going to start censoring all the games on the Valve store, and then there was a huge backlash, and Valve came back and said we're not going to censor. So clearly that whatever forces inside of Valve that were pushing for censorship failed, and it has kind of been a great victory for free speech since then, although it's still a little iffy. This is a developing story. Of course, that's not what we're talking about today. We got off on a side tangent there. We're almost done, so went on a bit of a rant there, or just wanted to, I suppose, point that out. And frankly, I wouldn't even really cover Firewatch if it was gifted to me. I really don't even want people to gift it to me. While I would love people to gift me games, I think any money that goes to the developer is sending the wrong message. So that's one I'd prefer never own. And I don't take stands generally on game developers, but when it comes to censorship, that is a pet peeve of mine. Moving on, we have Everyday Genius Square Logic. This seems to be some kind of puzzle game. Is it a puzzle game worth playing? Looks like it might be some weird, some variant of something sort of like Sudoku. Yeah, I mean, clearly this doesn't look amazingly good. It's a 2009 game, but it's rated very positively, 98% positive. So at the time, apparently people like it, or people still like it. So I think I'll just bow to the masses in this case and say, well, people like this. What's weird is that the title, this 2, for some reason makes me think it's a sequel. I don't know what a 5 doesn't make me think it's a sequel, but having all these numbers fly forward there and having the logo be relatively small, it was just a bad design. Oh, because over here, if you look at it, Everyday Genius Square Logic, the 2 is a lot closer. But yeah, this will stay on the wish list. There may have been 2 or 3 games that we've left on the wish list that didn't deserve to stay there. Next is the game Everything, which is a simulation philosophical game. I think it's a weird experiment, certainly, but experimental style game. Clearly it's 83% positive of 1,430 reviews though, and it's published by Double Fine, so it's in somewhat good company. David O'Reilly also has made a game called Mountain. So yeah, I think this one, while clearly it doesn't look like it's actually much of a game, seems like you just get to play as different types of animals, and these animals somehow interact in a very simplistic way. Yep, I'll keep this on the wish list. I very possibly would never be in the right mood to buy this game though. And Mountain is an ambient procedural mountain game. So he seems to be into developing procedural games of some sort. Kind of looks like a Katamari Damacy game. Next we have Evil Genius. This is a game that I played around when it came out. It's overwhelmingly positive. It is in the spirit of the Dungeon Keeper series, except for it doesn't have the Dungeon Keeper's demonic humor. Instead, it goes for supervillain humor. The one issue I would say about this game is it's probably a little bit buggy. Like, I recall it being a little bit buggy when I played it. There is also, I think, a point where you get like halfway through one game and you've either lost at that point and you really can't win and go any further, or you just lose interest. That's my general feeling of how it went when I played it before. This is from Rebellion as the publisher and Elixir Studios, which I'm not 100% sure that they ever got made anything else. You can see the game's probably too long at 26 hours to 40 hours. And there are games like War for the Overlord, which are better Dungeon Keeper clones, or Dungeons 2, both of which are sort of Dungeon Keeper's tones. Here's a negative review. Evil Genius is in dire need of an overhaul and update. It's fun, provides good challenge, and is in no way short on last, but can it sometimes feel like an incomplete product, which makes your world domination operations feel somewhat anemic towards the late game, giving arbitrary limits of million population and associated flaws with interface and control. It's a game I love, which is why I can't recommend it. At least more people are exposed to its flaws. So yeah, this isn't a game that I'm gonna remove. It's still at the top of my list, but it really is probably a game I'd just spotlight. Rebellion, I'd say, is their latest game. Strange Brigade was a weird game, but I'd say they're probably more focused in their Sniper Elite games and their shooting games. They had a Lord of the Realm series. Let's see, that's 2015. They bought, I think, the license to this game, Wolfie the Red Hood Diaries, which would be a great game if it was ever finished, but it wasn't. So Rebellion has like a whole list of games that they've licensed and that they need to finish. And I'm not sure that they really are going to do that. You can see Evil Genius is only the third game in that they have as far as oldest, with Judge Dredd versus Death and Rogue Trooper. Now oddly, Rogue Trooper I think did get some weird remake or announcement of a weird remake, and I have no reason or explanation for that. And when I click Elixir Studios, it just takes us to Rebellion Interactive's development page, so clicking this would take me to the exact same page. I'm really hating the way these new developer pages work. Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure I would recommend people play or get Evil Genius. Yeah, I'd probably just want to do a spotlight and say, hey, if you got some nostalgia for this game, it's worth owning, but in reality, no. Somebody probably could have modded this or taken the idea of this and made a new Evil Genius style game, but if they did, you can kind of see that there's the recommendation engine is probably not gonna make it easy to find out if there is a game like that. Dungeons 3 probably is your closest bet. And it is in this weird position certainly where because Evil Genius is a spin-off of Dungeon Keeper, there's much more desire to make a clone of Dungeon Keeper than there is to make a spin-off of Evil Genius. There aren't a ton of spy games in general that have been made, particularly when you throw out the James Bond, GoldenEye style games. Yeah, anything with James Bond in the name, throw that out. You don't have too many spy games at the beginning, or things that at least feel like spy games. Let's see what else. Next we have Evil Genome. Let's see, this is 69% positive. This is it's probably a cheap Chinese game that has some visual aspect that caught my attention. Probably an anime girl. And the actual gameplay probably is not that good. Skip the credits and see how this starts. Like, this does not look bad at all. For a 2017 game, maybe there's a little bit of work. It's certainly not zoomed in on the character, so I can't see a lot about it. This feels a lot like a Metroid clone. Let's see, heroine Lachesis will lead you and explore the vast wasteland world, experiencing different battles as well as developing your own character. It's an RPG Metroidvania game. Like, yeah, she doesn't look terrible. But most of your gameplay, you're going to be looking at her from that distance, but this doesn't also look like a bad game. So I have to now figure out why it's reviewed badly. What languages does it support? To English and Simplified Chinese. It's probably a cheap Chinese game. Unfortunately, a lot of cheap Chinese games are good at looking good, but turn out to be extremely short or extremely buggy. Control and UI are clunky and stiff. Considering this type of game that needs reflex and fast action, you might want to consider buying the game. I like the game, but it's way too unpolished and rough to recommend. There are still Chinese text. The text in the books is important, but it's laughable and confusing. There are no instructions at all on how to play. The interface is confusing and redundant. One boss, the twins, has one hit kill, and you have to face it twice. Another boss Sophia is significantly more difficult than anything before, requiring grinding to get a level high enough to pass it. After getting to the second part of the game, it is impossible to go back to the first. Transport system is terrible. It activates only towards the end of the game. There is no world map, so knowing where to go is quite confusing. Shame, because I love many things about the game. It's way more sophisticated than it seems at first look. Abandoned game with game-breaking bugs which prevent progress. That's what this person said on March 5th. So yeah, it's a shame. Let's see what this game, The Vagrant, is. We've already looked at Callie's Caves as a Metroidvania style game. It's a shame, but it's not unexpected. Kind of happens. The Chinese are pretty good at making flashy or interesting looking games, but apparently there's not a lot of consumer protection that is enforced in China, so you can make a bad game and get away with it and nobody can do anything about it. So I imagine there's just so many people in China, you can make a bad game and disappear. And of course, we didn't even mention that the Chinese government has, for right now at least, and for the foreseeable future, refused to certify any games for sale in China. So more and more cheap Chinese games are going to come to Steam, since even the Chinese companies can't sell their own games in the country. Moving on, The Vagrant, female protagonist, action RPG, 2D nudity. See, and that's the problem with a game like this. Since it says nudity, I'm gonna move forward. The problem with a game like Vagrant is that the nudity might be pretty prevalent in the game, and then I wouldn't be able to play it on Steam. Oddly, streamers, YouTubers, Twitch players, we kind of need censorship patches because of the platforms we show the content on, whereas generally speaking, I'd say go the other direction. Although, you know, if you're a kid and your parents don't want you seeing that stuff and they are willing to buy you the game as long as you play it with the censorship patch, that would be helpful too, towards that specific type of customer. Moving on, we have Evo Explorers. I was wrong about how many games were left. We got to be close to the end though. This is an MC Escher puzzle game. We've seen several of these at this point. This is a 2016 game, rated 90% positive. There's really no reason why this would get removed. This is also from the developer who made Dot Project, which is, I think, a game maybe I did remove, or maybe I kept it. If I removed it, I'm going to put it back on the wish list. This would have been part of the first video because it was a symbol or number. Next we have Evoland, which is an RPG retro game from 2013. It's questionable whether it has relevancy. The trick here is that you start here. Let's just go back and explain this. You start in a really old school world, and then you evolve into, like, from what would have been Game Boy graphics, which would have been 2-bit graphics, to 8-bit graphics, to 16-bit graphics, or at least artistic styles that look like that, and then to something that maybe would have been a Sega Genesis, kind of 32-bit graphics, and then evolve to something that would be closer to a PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2 game. I don't think the graphics ever get amazingly great. I don't think you eventually evolve up into something that looks like a 2018 game, or even a 2013 game. But it's an interesting idea, certainly. Now, I don't believe the graphics just get worse because you take damage or anything. I think it is a more time manipulation game where you move throughout time and it's depicted differently because of that. $9.99 rated very positively. I didn't need to talk about it that much. And Evoland 2, for comparison, came out in 2015 and it's very positive too. Seems like maybe the graphics try to go a little bit better, but I bet it doesn't go much better than that. This is probably a good RPG to keep on the list because it has its own little unique twist. It's probably 30-hour games for both, so it'd be 60-hour commitment to play both of the games in the series. But that little twist does let this RPG stand out from the crowd, and in my mind I could say I'm not just playing this game because it's an RPG or a RPG that's more targeted towards a Western audience, in the sense that it's not full of anime girls, which we have very few anime games came out with the letter E. I bet that is because in the Japanese pronunciation and vernacular they don't have a letter E. Like they use the letter I. I would guess that's the reason, yeah. That's not the direct, complete explanation of the situation, but yeah. I don't think they would inherently spell anything starting with an E. Alright, so now I know there are 2 games left. There is Echoplex, which is a relatively brand new early access game, so I guess this should go on the fall list instead. But it's very positive, and it would save me some time if I just left it on the wish list, so I'm just going to leave it on the wish list. This is a programming game. There's probably too many of those on my wish list. This would be roughly the newest one to have covered. If I had covered it when it first came out, I might have gotten some more views. But by the time I get around to covering it now, it's probably going to be long forgotten. Next we have Echoplex TEC Redshift player. So basically in the main hacking game, you program basically Game Boy games for this Game Boy player that you can in the main game play for perfectly fine. But the developer decided, well, if you make this game and it's really popular and the people aren't really interested in doing the hacking element there, let's release a free player just for the game that you programmed inside of our game. And thus that's what they did, which is super generous and nice. And I love to see a super generous and nice developer when one actually exists in the video game industry. And that is that. Like I said at the beginning, E's weren't going to be the longest of lists. While the letter E is the most commonly used letter in the English language, it's generally not at the beginning of a word. So we went through this in about 3 hours, whereas it probably took about 5 hours to go through all the letter D games. And so we're making progress, certainly. Is there anything else to say? Yeah, really, Evil Genome was about the only anime game that we even covered. Well, the D's was full of a lot of anime nudity visual novel games. Next time we'll be at F's, and definitely to start with Fear. That's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos, because that helps me with YouTube and tells them that my videos are worth watching. When you subscribe, please click the notification bell too. If you want to friend or follow me on Twitter, Tumblr, Google+, Steam, or Battle.net, All of those links are down below in the description box. And if you want to support me, you can either support me through Patreon, or you could friend me on Steam and you could gift me a game you'd like to see me cover, or just any game off my wish list. That's the reason why we're going through this and doing cleanup, so that those games are actually of good quality and worth covering. Or you can also friend someone and gift them a gift card, which is helpful if you don't want to make a decision. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.